Hey everyone, my name is Hinako Jefferson. I'm an information systems student at Middle Tennessee State University, and today I will be showcasing my Tableau analysis over the drinking habits of adults around the world during the year of 2020. So just to preface my project topic, back in December 2019, very late December 2019, scientists discovered a new strain of flu that originated from Wuhan, China, that is now known as COVID-19. As we all know now, this virus very, very quickly blew up into a global pandemic within a matter of months of discovery. And this pandemic was nothing like I've ever seen in my lifetime, nothing like many people have seen in their lifetimes. So this is a very major life event for a lot of people. So because of this pandemic, a lot of countries, a lot of regions throughout the world went into lockdown to try to minimize the spread of this new virus. And luckily, I was able to go under lockdown myself or go into quarantine myself. In the months of March, April, May, and maybe a little bit of early June, I was very, very, very fortunate to be able to take off work with pay. And around this time, my schooling was also transitioned from on-campus learning to completely remote work. So I completed a majority of my senior year completely from home, which, has its cons, but I'm very, very thankful that I've been able to, try to limit my exposure to the virus. Yes. So the reason I decided to choose this as my topic of research is because during this lockdown, I indulged in a lot of drinking. My video game collection was very limited. My social interaction was basically at a zero. So I turned to drinking, and I was very, very curious to see how other adults had transitioned their drinking habits during their lockdowns too. Did they drink a lot less in an effort to avoid visiting liquor stores? Did they drink more because they wanted to pass up their time very quickly? Did they go to liquor stores, or did they prefer to buy online? How were bars during this time? So these are just all questions that I had. As of recording this video, this is December 2020, but I initially started this assignment in August 2020, which is very, very close to, or it's actually in the middle of the pandemic. So my data sets that were available to me online were very, very limited. So a lot of my initial questions weren't answered, but throughout the process of this project, I was able to find new questions. I became curious about different areas of drinking habits in the pandemic. So, the evolution of this project changed throughout these past several months into this project that I have now, that I'll be presenting to you guys. So starting off with my first slide, this is titled Average Alcoholic Servings per Adult by Country in 2020. So I split off the totals by country, and I filter the countries by continent, so that way, if I wanted to look a little bit more specific areas of the world, I wouldn't have to do so much scrolling. I also have a grand totals pane to calculate the servings per all three categories. And my alcoholic beverages are split into three categories throughout this whole project. It's split into beer, spirit, and wine. Um, I also have a grand total for each category just to see, which alcoholic beverage or alcoholic type is the most popular throughout the whole world. I just thought that would be really interesting to see. Um, but yeah, so just taking a look at Asia, we can see that Afghanistan has zero. That's obviously because the country has an alcohol ban. Same with Iran. Um, I'm gonna take a look at Japan because that's my home country, and Japanese adults love to drink beer. They love going to bars. If you go to karaoke, you're gonna drink beer. If you go to dinner, you're gonna drink beer. So I would expect that Japan's preferred alcohol of choice is beer. But looking at this data, we can see that it's actually spirit by a long shot, which is crazy. Not at all what I expected. Um, Another phenomenon that I found really interesting to me was North Korea, with zero for all three categories as well. And to me, that indicates two possibilities, which I could very easily Google to find the answer, but I just lack the knowledge of North Korea. One is that North Korea also has an alcohol ban, or the other indication that I have is that North Korea is not releasing any public data on their alcoholic sales. Considering they're a very, very private country, and they did the same thing with their COVID-19 count. They didn't publicize that data either. So those are two possibilities that I thought could be the case. Moving on to the next slide, we have top 10 consumers of alcohol by category. Of course, we can filter through different categories, but these are the top 10 countries, or top 10 consumers, sorry, by country based on the different beverage types. So we have here Slovenia with beer. Yeah, just about all of these are European. That's to be expected. Spirit. We have wine as the top spirit fan. And moving on to wine, as expected, France is also the top consumer of wine too. The next slide I've created is total coronavirus cases by country. This data starts from January 2020 and it goes until early November of 2020. Again, we can filter through different continents, and I created a sliding scale to look through the increase in cases based on the date of the year. I didn't want to create a drop down or a list for the date, considering there's hundreds of dates. I figured just a sliding scale will be really easy to navigate through. And here we can see this is April. The US is already leading, of course. And continuing to slide through, we just see that the US is getting worse and worse, and we just are really bad at minimizing the spread. And of course, for those of us who have lived through this, this was due to the political climate. We somehow managed to politicize the use of masks, which is crazy, but I digress. Moving on to the next slide. Now we're looking at the total deaths of coronavirus, or related to coronavirus based on country. Again, we have a sliding scale, and we see that the US is just, once again, the worst, just consistently throughout the board. Again, you can filter through the continents if you choose to do so. Next case, this is the alcoholic beverage of choice for Americans here in the United States, again, for the year 2020. Yeah, as you'd expect, beer is American adults' favorite alcoholic beverage. Moving on. This time I decided to take a look at the United States specifically for coronavirus cases. We can filter through months. I did this total on a monthly basis, so we can just use a drop-down list. That's fine. And yeah, as we go on, we can just see that we keep getting redder and redder, um, eventually reaching to 76 million, or not 76 million, um, 300 million cases. Alright, and moving on, here we have new cases and new deaths in the United States throughout the year 2020. I think up until, yes, November 2020. And of course, we see that the death was the worst back in April at 4,928, but even the the deaths are kind of, or they look to be contained. If we look up here at the cases, they just keep exploding. Let's see, looking at April, the cases were at 50,000. Here's around May. This is kind of in the middle of the United States lockdown. June, everything starts to lift up because everybody wanted to go out for summertime. Spikes in July, goes back down around September, and back up again in November. I wish I had data a little bit closer, or a little bit past Thanksgiving, because a lot of scientists had predicted for cases to boom after Thanksgiving, because a lot of Americans, again, refuse to isolate, or, basically isolate and social distance and wear masks for political reasons, and will choose to visit their families throughout Thanksgiving. So yeah, the cases were expected to boom, and we did see that the cases did boom a lot, but yeah, I don't have it on my worksheet, which is a shame. Next slide is US foot traffic in 2020. So this is the foot traffic in bars and liquor stores. Bars being blue and liquor stores being orange. Again, like I mentioned, we had lockdowns in which bars were ordered to shut down, but liquor stores were able to stay open as they were considered essential services. So here we have in March, which was, I believe this was around the time that the coronavirus became, or like started to spread here in the US specifically. We're seeing less people are going to bars, and I guess this was when people were taking the pandemic very seriously, or the virus very seriously rather. And here we see, oh sorry, no, this is bars. So I guess this was before the virus's spread got too bad. I guess a lot of people wanted to go out and visit bars before lockdowns occurred, because we saw in other countries, especially towards the east, that lockdowns were occurring. So I guess I'm pretty sure we predicted that we would eventually reach a lockdown, especially after the spread around throughout, cruise ships and Florida, California. There was a big spread in Seattle in the beginning of the year. And here we start to see that liquor stores are gaining way more foot traffic than bars. And here in June, again, like I said, people wanted to go out for summer, so a lot more people are visiting bars. It's kind of a funny pattern about this point, but yeah, bars are seemingly becoming more popular. A lot of people are taking the pandemic a little less seriously. So here I have a couple of dashboards created so that I could create my storyboard. So starting with the first slide of my storyboard, we begin in January of 2020. here we read the first case of COVID-19 in the United States was reported in January 2020. On March 5th, after many states declared a state of emergency due to the outbreak, Puerto Rico becomes the first United States territory to announce lockdown. Many states soon followed Puerto Rico's example after beating an exponential surge in new cases. So here we see the total number of cases in March went to about 1 million cases already, which is very, very fast. And here we have the chart for March. Looking up here, the deaths are kind of getting really bad, and the cases are skyrocketing. Right. However, America's favorite alcoholic beverage, beer, indicates that the country has a love for visiting bars. Here we see beer is very popular, and we do see that bars are extremely popular up until around March 18th. Let's see. So the 31st is obviously the highest number of cases we have in March, and this is when people decide to stop visiting bars so much and choose to go towards liquor stores. Most states were in lockdown by April, the month which had the largest spike in COVID-19 deaths, 5,000 deaths in one day. This is the largest single-day death toll to, even to this day. Oh, sorry, here's the storyboard. As the country sees its largest spike in new daily COVID-19 cases, Americans choose to purchase liquor from liquor stores and less from visiting bars. And we can see that by these two charts that I've created. However, once lockdowns loosen more in America, Americans tend to begin going back to bars, therefore resulting in a steady increase in COVID-19. Americans are choosing to attend bars even at the risk of contracting COVID-19. The decrease in foot traffic at bars are more likely due to government interferences and less likely due to the spike in COVID-19 cases. And I came to that conclusion due to the pattern of foot traffic in bars versus in liquor store in relation to the increase in cases as well as government restrictions, the timeline of government restrictions. So that's about it for my Tableau project. I'm very, very, very proud of this assignment. I absolutely loved creating this. So a couple of lessons that I've learned throughout this whole process are one, data cleansing takes a lot of work. I've had to cleanse my data, rebind my data, find new data to add on to my data set so many times, many times over. When I first began this project, I remember thinking, okay, I need to be able to gather everything and just have everything that I need right away to be able to dive into this project. But clearly, that was not the case. Like I've mentioned, the initial intent of my project changed throughout this process. So of course, along with that, the data cleansing, data processing, all of that had to evolve to be able to match my analyses. A second lesson that I learned, a second key takeaway that I've gained from this project, is to select the right visualization types. Again, I have to go through and just edit and change things so many times over, which is fine. Like for example, this foot traffic chart that I created was actually two separate charts. You know, one line chart for bars and one line chart for liquor stores. But you know, because we're comparing the two values, I thought maybe combining the two would be a little bit easier to see. And I think in hindsight, I should have done the same thing for this new cases versus new deaths chart. Especially because like this, comparing the two charts, you know, this spike in death just looks like, oh my gosh, like way more than the actual cases that were reported. But if you look at the numbers down here, obviously this chart it goes up to 4K, 6K, whereas this chart extends above 100K. So you know, let's see, for April 16th, that's right here, April 15th. So the new cases are at 30,000, whereas the total deaths, or sorry, the new cases are at 4,092, right? So just like off the bat, just looking at these two charts, it looks like the deaths are way more, but that's actually wrong. You know, so I have been able to get better at selecting appropriate chart types and you know how to employ visualization in order for people to be able to you know look at this data and assess the data very properly just at a glance. And then the very last key takeaway that I've gained throughout this assignment is that questions are limitless. Again, you know, my questions and my analyses has evolved a lot throughout this project, based on you know the changes in data available throughout the past few months. Also, my perception of the pandemic has changed a lot throughout this time too. Like COVID-19 has changed so much in a matter of several months. It's crazy. So, you know, the different questions that arise in that time, the different curiosities that I have in that time change a lot. But, you know, using, even if I had the same data set throughout this entire process, I think my questions would still have evolved in this time. Also, same thing with, let's say, I give the same data set to some other person. I'm sure they would come up with a completely different analyses than I came up with, but you know that doesn't mean that their project is any more incorrect than mine. So I just thought that the creation of data visualizations is very fueling to the imagination. And those are the key takeaways that I've learned throughout this project. Because of this assignment, I believe that I believe I want to pursue a career in data visualizations. Because you know this is a way for me to combine both computer skills along with creativity and art skills, which just sounds like a lot of fun. Seems like so much fun. So that is basically an overview of my project. I'm sorry this video took so long, but thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a great night. Thank you.